All right, so this one, I want everybody to do this. A radical is a root. So put a square root right over the word radical. That's a fancy math word for square root or for any kind of root, a cubed root, a fourth root, a fifth root, etc. We're only going to be dealing with square roots today. The reason why we're doing this today is to show you that the only reason why we're doing this is to show you, because you're going to be using this a lot in your future math classes, and I want to make sure that you have the ability to do this. So everybody put in, everybody write down the square root of 72. Go ahead. Square root of 72. Okay. So we need to talk about how to reduce this, because what you don't want to do in this situation, just like, you know how like a 1/3 is not really 0.3?
Yeah.
It's 0.3 repeating. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So right now in your calculator, put in square root of 72. Everybody put it in your calculator. You see how we don't get an even number? Which, by the way, should make sense to you, because what's 8 squared? 64. And what's 9 squared? 81. And this is between 64 and 81, so it makes sense that it's 8 point something, right? But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to reduce, just kind of like you're reducing a fraction when you reduce a square root. So here's what you do. You make a factor tree out of it, like this. Okay, so what goes into 72? You're allowed to use calculators. What definitely goes into 72?
2.
2 or 7, but 2.
9.
We're going to say 2 for right now. And then in your calculator, what should you be doing to figure out what the other one is?
36.
72 divided by 2, which is 36. And what does 36 break down into?
12 and 3.
Sure, 12 and 3 or 6s.
I remember this now.
Good. And then what breaks down 12? 4 and 3. And then 4 can be broken down into 2 and 2. All right, so first thing I want to show you is this. What we have right now is a 2, 2, 2, a 3, and a 3. Do you see how they're all pieces?
Yeah.
Okay, so in your calculator, everybody do this with me. You're going to type 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3, because that's what we broke it down to.
72.
That's 72. Now,
I want to figure this out.
okay, don't talk over me. Yes.
Why did you go with 6? If you said 7, 12, and 3.
I got 1.
If you did 6 and 2.
No, 6 and 6.
For 36.
Okay, so if you did a 6 and 6, then each 6 would break down into a 3 and 2, and you would still have the same 2s and 3s left. Good question.
I was thinking about adding.
All right. Now, I'm going to make an even easier example for you to understand. Please look up. If I had the square root of 4, what would that break down to?
2 and 2.
2 and 2. And what is the square root of 4, guys?
2.
Just 2. Everybody understand? This is a pair of 2s. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to circle pairs. I've got a pair of 3s. I've got a pair of 2s. And then I've got 1, 2 left over. So then what I'm going to do is that equals, I'm going to put the pairs on the outside. So I had a pair of 2s, I had a pair of 3s, and then the leftovers stay on the inside. There's 1, 2 left over. Notice that when I have a pair of 2s, I only put 1, 2 on the outside, just like here. That equals 2, right? It doesn't equal 2 times 2, it equals just 2. So what's 2 times 3? 6. The final answer to this problem is 6 square roots of 2. Now what we're going to try is to prove it to ourselves. Do you remember how we found out earlier that the square root of 72 was 8.48? Okay? So now what I want you to do is type in 6 times the square root of 2.
No way.
Do you see how it's also this? It's just a different. It's simplifying the square root of 72. It's still the same thing. Just like 6/8 is the same thing as 3/4. because they're simplified, they're the same thing. All right, so let's try again. Number 2. I want you to do the square root of 48. Try it with your partner right now. Break it down.
They're coming down. Yeah, 4.
All right, if you did it right, you should have 4 times the square root of 3 as your final answer. Talk to your partner, decide if you'd like to come up here and show us how you did it.
Me, right here.
Hands up.
Choose the answer.
4 times the square root of 3. Come on up, guys.
She said 4.
Make sure that you're polite. Talk nice and loud, Zach.
All right. So, we're gonna start off. We're gonna do 4 and 12.
Hands up if you did the same thing or that they did. Okay?
And then we're gonna split the 4 up into 2 2s because 2 times 2 is 4. And then 4 and 3 for the 12. And that 4 goes into 2 2s. So then you have a pair of 2s, so 2 times 2. And then the square root of 3 because it's alone. And you multiply the 2 and you get 4. So that's about it.
Now, even if you broke it down into something other than 12 and 4, did anybody else start with something else? What did you guys start with?
6 and
6 and 8? Did you guys do 6 and 8 first? Okay, you should have still gotten 4 2s and a 3 when you break it all down, and that's the correct way to do it. Nice job. Doesn't matter what order they're in.
What? What do you mean?
I mean, like, if the 3 had come first and then all the 2s, when you break it down, it doesn't matter that order.
Well, no. The 2s matter. The 2s.
It matters what's on the inside and the outside at the end. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, example 3. All right, this one we're going to do the square root of the square root of 10 times the square root of 20. Does anybody know the rules with square roots, what you do if you multiply them? You multiply the insides together. So that would be the square root of
30.
200. Multiplying, not adding.
Oh.
Okay? Now, if we break down the square root of 200, that's going to be 10 and 20. We know that because we just multiplied them together. But what is 10 the same as? 5 and 2. And 20 is 4 and 5. And then 4 gets broken down to 2 more 2s. So I've got a 5, a 2, 2, 2, and a 5. All right, so now let's see. I've got a pair of 2s here. I've got a pair of 5s there. And I've got 1 extra 2. So when I simplify this, I'm going to write 2 times 5 times the square root of 2, which is 10 times the square root of 2. Remember, you can always check it by putting in your calculator the square root of 200. and 10 times the square root of 2 and see if you're right. All right. We're going to try one more with your partner and then call it a day. Try with your partner the square root of 8 times the square root of 14. We'll go over this answer tomorrow, but talk to your partner now, please.